Rain hammered against the fractured glass of Sunset Plaza Cinema, a weary old building that looked like it had surrendered to time long ago. Kira Ellis tightened her hood against the downpour, her breath fogging the car window as she sat in silence for a moment. She'd driven over 3 hours from downtown Chicago to reach this forgotten theater nestled in the corner of a dying Illinois suburb, a place once filled with laughter and the scent of fresh popcorn, now drowning in red ink and silence. It was one of 27 theaters under her name, but this one had been hemorrhaging money like a busted pipe. As she stepped inside, the warmth of the lobby didn't reach her bones. Behind the ticket counter, a teenage girl didn't even bother to glance up from her phone. Her name tag read Kayla Emerson, but she barely registered as human behind the screen glow. Kayla, Kira replied smoothly, using the alias from the fake ID tucked into her wallet, a necessary mask for these covert visits. It wasn't lost on her the irony of sneaking into her own business like a stranger in the night. She was the owner, and yet here she was, undercover like some corporate spy trying to unearth the truth buried beneath spreadsheets and sales reports. Eventually the girl Bella, her tag read, lifted her eyes. They were rimmed with fatigue, the kind that seeps into the bones after too many shifts and too few thank yous. "What movie?" she asked in a voice so soft it almost dissolved into the hum of the ancient vending machines. "The new Superhero 1, 7:30 showing," Kira replied. Bella's fingers moved with robotic grace across a terminal that looked like it belonged in a museum. "That'll be $12.50, she said. As Kira handed over the exact change, her eyes drifted around the lobby. The once luxurious red carpet was littered with stains, some old and some suspiciously recent. Posters hung askew, as if no one had cared enough to straighten them. Then came the smell. Stale butter, harsh chemicals, and something else. Something sour, metallic, wrong. It hit her like a slap. This wasn't the empire she'd imagined when she inherited Ellis Entertainment 5 years ago. She'd been 25 then, fresh out of business school, armed with vision and vigor. She'd expanded the chain from 15 to 27 theaters, integrated new tech and boosted profits by 30% in less than 3 years. But lately, Sunset Plaza was a red flag in her quarterly reports. Something was off, and no spreadsheet could tell her what. "Your ticket, miss." Bella handed it over with a kind politeness that seemed out of place in such a crumbling scene. "Theater 6. Down the hall to your right. Enjoy your movie." Kira paused, surprised by the sincerity. There was a warmth in Bella's voice, a softness that reminded Kira of why she'd fallen in love with the movie business to begin with. Movies brought people together. This theater, broken as it was, still had people like Bella fighting to hold on to that purpose. "Thank you," Kira said, and meant it. But instead of heading down the hall, she turned toward the concession stand. The real heartbeat of any cinema. Ticket sales barely kept the lights on. It was the snacks that paid the bills. Yet, according to her reports, this location had seen a staggering 40% drop in concession revenue over the past 6 months. She had to see why. The scene behind the counter was bleak. Of the 3 soda machines, one was taped off with a temporarily out-of-order sign so faded it might as well have been written in ancient script. The nacho cheese bubbled with a sinister gurgle, and the hot dog roller limped along, rotating exactly 2 shriveled, sunken sausages that looked like they'd been forgotten since the early 2000s. Rosie. 2 employees worked the counter. Kira moved closer, pretending to browse the candy as their conversation made her stomach knot. "Man, I'm telling you, no one's gonna notice if we just scrape it off," said a lanky teen with pockmarked cheeks. His name tag read Jeremy. In his hand, he held a hot dog bun which he was scraping with a plastic knife, removing something green and fuzzy from its surface. His co-worker, a woman in her 40s named Tanya, laughed. "You're learning, kid. Reed taught me that trick years ago. Why toss food that's got a little personality? Long as it looks fresh, nobody cares. Kira felt her pulse spike, her breath caught in her throat. Tanya added, almost with pride, "Corporate's too busy counting their money to care what happens down here. As long as the numbers shine, they don't ask questions." Jeremy chuckled, nodding. "And Reed cuts us in. It's like a bonus for being clever." Tanya leaned in, lowering her voice. "He's got connections, too. His uncle's the regional GM. We're golden as long as we keep hitting the targets." Kira's blood ran cold. Reed Morrison, the night manager here. And his uncle, Mark Ellis, her cousin. The same Mark who'd been lobbying for a VP role, who'd grown increasingly bitter since Kira inherited the company their grandfather built. A man and his teenage daughter approached the counter. "2 large popcorns and a couple sodas," the father said, pulling out his wallet. Jeremy moved swiftly, shoving the moldy bun into the warming drawer and throwing on a grin. "Welcome to Sunset Plaza. Coming right up." Kira watched in stunned silence as he scooped stale, discolored popcorn into the tubs. When he turned to pour the sodas, she noticed him grab cups from a stack that had been sitting uncovered near the nacho machine. Cups that had been collecting condensation and who knew what else. It was worse than she'd feared. This wasn't just neglect. It was rot, and it was spreading from the inside out. $28, Jeremy announced with a grin that was almost smug. The father's brows arched in disbelief. 28 for popcorn and soda? Before the silence could stretch too long, Tanya chimed in without missing a beat. "Premium pricing for premium entertainment," she said with a mock-serious tone, her fingers still lazily spinning the 2 withered hot dogs on the roller. Kira stood there, frozen. The audacity of it was suffocating. They were charging luxury prices for food that by all rights should have been discarded. And they weren't just aware of it, they were proud of it. It wasn't ignorance. It was a business model built on deception. Once the family moved along, Jeremy leaned against the counter, wiping his hands on a towel that looked like it hadn't seen a washing machine since Obama's first term. "You know what the best part is?" he said. "Health inspector comes next week, but Reed's got it covered. His buddy from high school works in the county office. It's all taken care of." "Sweet setup," Tanya agreed, stretching. "Easy money, laid-back boss, and nobody up top asking too many questions. It's like winning the job lottery." Kira's stomach twisted in knots. This wasn't about a few expired snacks anymore. This was institutional rot, protected by personal connections and deliberate neglect, and her own blood was at the core of it. Mark, her cousin. The same man who'd toasted her promotion at the holiday party, all smiles and gritted teeth. Just as she turned to leave, the sound of cautious footsteps halted her. Bella was approaching the counter again, clearly nervous but trying to sound casual. "Hey, Tanya," she said softly. "The milk for the coffee machine expired 3 days ago. Should I toss it and grab a new one from storage?" Tanya rolled her eyes in theatrical annoyance. "Oh my God, Bella, you're so paranoid. 3 days? That's nothing. Use it." Bella hesitated. "But what if someone gets sick?" Jeremy chuckled, tossing a handful of napkins into the trash. "Nobody's gotten sick yet. Besides, who drinks coffee at a movie theater? They're asking for it." Bella looked troubled, her hands fidgeting at her sides. She opened her mouth as if to argue, then thought better of it. She turned to leave, then paused once more. "Waited. What about the candy? Some of those boxes look like they've been there forever. I saw." Tanya cut her off sharply. "Bella, you're new. Let me give you a piece of advice. Do your job. Take your paycheck. And don't ask questions about stuff that's not your business. Got it?" There was a long silence. Then, reluctantly, Bella nodded and walked away, her face a mask of disappointment. but not before Kira saw something that gave her a flicker of hope, a glimmer of real concern, of conscience. Kira's heart ached. This girl, this one underpaid, overworked, and clearly out of place, was the only person in the building who seemed to care about doing the right thing. She turned to leave, finally ready to walk away from the scene, but Jeremy's voice snapped her back like a whip. "I love this job," he said, holding up another questionable bun. "Where else can you get paid to be creative with expiration dates?" Tanya laughed. "Just remember the rule. If it's green, scrape it clean." Jeremy finished the joke with a smirk. "Nacho cheese still sells." Kira clenched her fists inside her hoodie. She had built Ellis Entertainment on a promise that every parent who brought their child to her theaters could trust the experience, that safety, cleanliness, and quality mattered more than margin. And now, her vision was being twisted into something grotesque. Her cousin's fingerprints were all over it. Instead of heading into the theater, Kira sat down on a cracked vinyl bench in the corner of the lobby. She pulled out her phone and pretended to scroll through social media, though her mind was ablaze with fury. Around her, the evening crowd thickened. Families, teens, couples, none of them knew the truth about what they were being served. By 8:30, the real horror show began. "Yo, Tanya, we're almost out of hot dogs," Jeremy called. "Just use the ones from yesterday," she replied. "Roll them around so they look new." Kira felt bile rise in her throat as Jeremy retrieved a tray of greasy, leathery hot dogs from a hidden shelf and plopped them onto the roller. The meat glistened, not with freshness, but with age and neglect. A woman approached with her 2 young kids. "Can we get some candy?" one of them chirped. "Cheers, sweetie," Tanya cooed, reaching for a faded box from the back of the case. "These are really good. My favorite." Kira's eyes narrowed. She saw the subtle switch, the way Tanya grabbed the old candy instead of the fresh stock. As she rang up the purchase, Tanya turned to Jeremy. "Remember Reed's trick? New stuff in front, old stuff behind. Sell the old first." Jeremy nodded. "Nobody checks candy dates. And if they complain?" "Manufacturer's fault," Tanya replied smoothly. "Offer a free soda. Problem solved." Kira's chest tightened. These weren't mistakes. These were strategies. At 9 o'clock, the source of it all emerged from the back office. Reed Morrison, night manager. Paul, mid-30s, confident, in a way that bordered on arrogance. He wore a polo shirt tucked into khakis and a smirk that made Kira's skin crawl. As soon as he appeared, Tanya and Jeremy transformed. Postures straightened, smiles widened, suddenly eager to be seen as diligent workers. "How's it going tonight, team?" Reed asked, but it wasn't a question. It was a performance. "Great, boss," Jeremy said, practically bouncing. "Just following all the procedures you taught us." Reed sauntered over to the cheese machine, nodding. "This baby's been making us bank. Amazing what people pay when they don't ask questions." Kira leaned in. "Speaking of which," Reed lowered his voice, "I've got some expired inventory in the back. Jeremy, integrate it into the candy display tomorrow. Put the fresh boxes in front, old stuff in back." "The stuff from July?" Jeremy asked. "That's the one. It's fine. Sell-by dates are just suggestions. It's all about perception." Tanya laughed, practically gushing. "You're a genius, Reed. Most managers would toss that stuff." Reed shrugged. "Most managers don't understand business. My uncle taught me better. Every item you throw out is money lost. That's why he's the regional GM." Kira's heart dropped. Those exact words. Mark had said them to her last Christmas, talking about revenue streams and strategy. She hadn't realized then what he really meant. Reed went on, his voice lowering again. "This system, untraceable. Corporate gets clean numbers, we get bonuses, everybody's happy. My uncle makes sure the reports stay pretty." "What about the health inspector?" Jeremy asked. Reed just grinned. "They don't check everything, just the basics. And my buddy in the health department? He's got my back." Kira sat frozen, breath shallow, fire building behind her eyes. She wasn't just dealing with lazy employees or local mismanagement. This was a conspiracy, shielded by nepotism and greased by corruption. But Reed had just made his biggest mistake. He'd assumed no one was watching. And now, Kira Ellis, the woman he thought was too far removed to notice, was here, eyes open, taking notes. The reckoning had begun. "Got a buddy in the health department now," Reed boasted from behind the storage room door. "It's amazing what a couple of free movie tickets and a six-pack can get you. Goodwill's cheap when you know the right people." Kira stood frozen, back pressed to the cool wall, every word confirming her worst fears. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was a cancer, systemic, strategic, a full-scale operation rotting the company from within, and Reed wasn't just part of it. He was orchestrating it. "If anyone ever complains," Reed continued, his voice lowering into a tone soaked in arrogance, "we blame it on supply chain issues, shipping delays. Corporates got lawyers for that crap. They're more afraid of bad press than a few sick customers." "Smart," Tanya replied, like they were talking about a clever business move rather than human lives. "What about Bella?" she asked after a pause. "She's been asking a lot of questions lately." Kira's heart thudded. That girl again, the only person in this building who still seemed to have a soul. Reed's tone shifted, darker now. "Bella needs to learn that curiosity's dangerous in our business. I've already warned her to focus on her tasks. If she keeps poking around, she'll find herself transferred." "To the one out by the interstate?" Jeremy asked. "The one that's like an hour from town?" "Exactly," Reed sneered. "Funny how attitudes change when your commute triples." They laughed. The sound was hollow and mean, echoing off the walls like something predatory. Kira felt her stomach churn, not from fear, but fury, the kind that started in your gut and spread through your bones. Reed continued, voice brimming with greedy pride. "Look, this isn't a charity, it's a business. Every expired item we sell is profit. Every health inspection we slide past is job security, and every month corporate sees good numbers from this place is another month closer to my promotion." "You think you'll get the regional assistant manager spot?" Tanya asked, her tone half teasing. "With my uncle pulling strings, it's practically mine already. He's been grooming me since day one. Family takes care of family, right?" Kira closed her eyes, swallowing the bile rising in her throat. That uncle was Mark, her cousin, her family, the same man who'd held her niece at her birthday party, who'd toasted her when she'd taken over the company. And now he was handing out promotions to men poisoning the trust she'd spent her life building. As Reed strutted back toward his office, he paused, looked right at Kira. For a terrifying heartbeat, she thought he saw through her disguise, but he just nodded with distant politeness and kept walking. From now on, he told his team, we keep it quiet and profitable. Corporate doesn't need the details, just results. Kira sat in silence, her mind spinning. This wasn't just about spoiled candy or funky hot dogs. This was a cultural disease, one that began with the very people she'd trusted most. And now, it was infecting every level of her company. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, back at her hotel room, she sat hunched over her laptop, digging through health inspection records for Sunset Plaza going back 2 years. She searched not as a CEO, but as a woman trying to reclaim something sacred, and what she found sickened her. Inspection after inspection, the same name signed every report. David Chin. Minor violations, vague language, no follow-ups, no real scrutiny. The reports weren't just careless, they were complicit. Kira dug deeper, tracing back timelines, LinkedIn pages, public records. David Chin had graduated 1 year behind Reed Morrison. Same high school, same sports teams. This wasn't just a loose acquaintance, it was a decade-old friendship. One that now shielded illegal activity with forged legitimacy. The next evening, Kira returned to the theater earlier, slipping in quietly before Reed's shift began. She needed to see both sides of the coin. The day manager, Susan Torres, was everything Reed wasn't. Mid-50, organized, meticulous, genuinely concerned with hygiene and customer experience. Kira watched her toss out stale pretzels, wipe down counters, and even scold an employee for nearly using lukewarm nacho cheese. "These were from yesterday," Susan said, gesturing at the pretzels. "We don't serve day-old food. That's how people get sick." It was like witnessing a different business entirely, but when Susan's shift ended at 6 o'clock, the darkness slithered back in. From a quiet spot near the break room, Kira watched Susan brief Reed on the day's activities. "I had to toss about $30 worth of hot dogs," she said, matter-of-factly. Reed nodded, smiling. But as soon as she walked away, Kira saw him roll his eyes and mutter, $30 down the drain, that woman's got no business sense. Over the next hour, Kira watched the night team quietly undo all of Susan's work. Expired snacks reappeared. Moldy hot dogs returned to the roller like ghosts from yesterday's mistakes. It was like watching someone sabotage their own store, on purpose. Around 8 o'clock, Kira noticed Bella on her break. The girl sat alone in the corner of the lobby, eating a sandwich from home. There was something in her posture, exhaustion maybe, or quiet defeat. Kira approached, holding a gas station coffee. "Mind if I sit?" Bella blinked, surprised. "Oh, you're the lady from last night?" "Yeah, sure." They sat in silence for a moment before Kira spoke. "You seem different from the others." Bella gave a dry laugh. "That's one way to put it. I actually care, I guess. If that makes me weird." "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. After-school job. I thought it'd be fun. Movies, popcorn, friendly co-workers." She paused. "But it's not like the movies at all." Kira nodded gently. "You've noticed things, haven't you?" Bella looked up, wary. Then, seeing something in Kira's eyes, she relented. "I use popcorn. The hot dogs sit there for days. I reported it to Reed. He said I was being dramatic. Told me to stop making trouble if I wanted to keep the job." "What about Susan?" Kira asked. "She's great, but she's only here during the day. Reed makes sure the shady stuff happens at night. Susan throws away bad food. Reed pulls it back out." Kira's heart twisted. "I even called the corporate complaint line last week," Bella said. "They told me a regional manager would follow up. And guess who called me? Reed. He said he heard I was spreading rumors and maybe this wasn't the right job for me." So Mark was filtering complaints, shielding Reed, silencing truth. "There's something else," Bella added, her voice now a whisper. "I think they're stealing too. Not from the register. They have a separate envelope. Tanya said it was bonus money for selling stuff that should have been trashed. Reed calls it creative inventory management." That night, after Bella returned to work, Kira made a decision. No more watching, no more waiting. She followed the voices deeper into the building, slipping into a narrow hallway marked authorized personnel only. The door was ajar. She pressed her ear against it. Inside, Reed's voice was low but unmistakable. "The problem is, day shift keeps tossing good inventory," he was saying. "We need a better system." "What about setting up separate storage?" Jeremy asked. "Somewhere Susan won't check." "Already done," Reed replied, smug. "There's a mini fridge behind the filing cabinet, perfect for anything temporarily exposed." Kira stepped back from the door, breath shallow. It was all there, the players, the strategy, the evidence. She didn't need popcorn. She didn't need the movie. She had her story, and soon everyone else would too. Kira's heart pounded violently in her chest as she turned the cold metal handle. To her surprise and dread, the door was unlocked. Swallowing the knot rising in her throat, she slipped the door open just enough to peer inside. The room was larger than she'd imagined, dimly lit and cluttered with cleaning supplies, paper goods, and random boxes stacked along rusted shelves. But it was the far corner that caught her eye. There it was, half hidden behind an old metal filing cabinet, the edge of a small refrigerator. Her breath caught. Voices echoed from the other side of the storage room. Reed, Jeremy, and Tanya were going through boxes of candy and snacks, splitting them into two piles, one labeled fresh and the other rotate. Reed was speaking, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. "That's the beauty of it. Keep it cold, and most expired stuff still tastes fine for weeks. Nobody's checking the backroom inventory, and if they do, we just say we're prepping for disposal." Kira crept silently along the side of the shelving units, heart hammering. She reached the filing cabinet and carefully slid it just enough to peek behind. The sight that met her eyes turned her stomach. The fridge was packed tight. Moldy shredded cheese, slimy gray lunch meat, containers of nacho cheese that had turned shades of orange and green, thick like sludge. The stench slapped her the moment she cracked the door open, a mix of rot and chemical masking spray. But it was the handwritten log taped inside that stopped her cold. Neatly written columns, dates, items, quantities, prices. October, 15 reheated 3-day-old hot dogs, 8 units sold at $4.50 equals $36, 0 cents revenue. Potential loss, $0, 0 cents. They weren't just cutting corners, they were documenting the crime, bragging through numbers. She snapped a series of quick photos, heart hammering. Each shutter sound echoed like a gunshot in her ears. Then, footsteps, laughter, a voice, "Read again." "Looks like we're all set for tomorrow," he was saying. "And remember, what happens in storage stays in storage." Kira slammed the fridge shut, nudged the filing cabinet back into place and slipped out with seconds to spare, barely ducking into the hallway as Reed turned the corner. Her hands trembled, but her purpose was now carved in stone. By morning, she was parked outside a house that looked like it belonged in a glossy magazine. A pristine lawn, 3-car garage, tasteful stone accents. Mark Ellis lived well for someone supposedly living on a corporate regional manager's salary. Now Kira knew how. She'd been sitting there since before sunrise, going over everything. Photos, logs, audio clips. She had enough to expose them all. But this part, confronting him, was personal. Mark was family, blood. The man she'd once trusted to protect the legacy of Ellis Entertainment. At 8:30, he stepped outside in a robe and slippers, bending to pick up the morning paper. He looked older than his 38 years, slightly hunched, hair thinning, his once athletic frame softened by years behind a desk. Kira stepped out of the car. Her hoodie was still damp from the night before, her jeans wrinkled. She wanted him to see her before he saw who she was. "Excuse me," she called, voice even. "Mark Ellis?" He looked up, squinting. "Yeah? Who's asking?" "I'm investigating some issues at Sunset Plaza. Thought you might have a few minutes." Immediately his face changed, defensive, tight. "Who are you exactly? Corporate didn't say anything about an audit." "I'm not from corporate," she said. "I'm an independent investigator. Been looking into some complaints. Food safety, employee mistreatment." Mark chuckled, but it was tight and nervous. "Sunset Plaza. That location's solid. One of our best. Numbers have been clean for months." Kira raised an eyebrow, even with all the health code violations. He flushed. "What violations? We pass every inspection. David Chin's never flagged anything major." That name. David Chin. He'd just confirmed the relationship, professional boundaries shattered. "Can we talk inside?" she asked. Mark hesitated, then shrugged. "Fine, make it quick. I've got meetings." The house interior was everything she expected. Granite countertops, polished wood, oversized leather chairs, and a wine collection worth a small fortune. Photos of Mark with Ellis executives, even her late grandfather, adorned the walls. Legacy on display. "Nice place," she said, settling onto the couch. "Regional management must be paying better than I thought." Mark's tone sharpened. "I've made smart investments." Kira pulled out her phone and showed him the photos of the fridge, the logbook. "Whose people buy nitritis in Reed's storage room, expired food, sold for profit, systematic, track." Mark barely glanced. "If that's true, and I'm not saying it is, that's Reed's responsibility, not mine. But when complaints are reported, they go to you," Kira pressed. "And instead of escalating them, you warn Reed and silence the employees." His jaw tensed. "You don't know what you're talking about. I know Reed is your nephew. I know David Chin is Reed's friend. I know Bella, the one employee trying to speak up, was threatened with transfer." Silence. Then Mark laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You want to know the real problem?" he asked, pacing to the window. "You think this is about right and wrong. It's not. It's about numbers, profits, survival. No, it's about trust. Families bring their kids to our theaters." Mark whirled around. "Spare me the idealism. You think a little expired food is deadly? People eat leftovers older than that every day. We're using resources wisely. You're lying to customers and stealing from the company." His eyes darkened. "You want to talk about the company? 15 years I've been here. 15 years of doing the dirty work while people like you sit in offices making speeches. I've increased profits in my region by 20% in 3 years. And for what?" He was shaking now. Rage, bitterness, years of it pouring out. "You think the CEO deserves that title? A 25-year-old with no experience, handed everything because of her last name?" Kira's heartbeat thundered. He was talking about her. Still, hadn't recognized her. "The current CEO has grown the company," she said quietly. "By what? Opening theaters that lose money? Spending on fancy customer surveys while ignoring bottom-line efficiency? That's not leadership. You decided to take matters into your own hands," she said. "I saved this company's skin more times than she'll ever know. Reed learned from me how to stretch inventory, how to work the numbers. That's real business. Even if it means threatening employees." He shrugged. "Sometimes you have to protect what works. That Bella girl, she's a risk. She keeps talking, she could get people fired. Or worse, get the whole place shut down." Kira stood, her hands trembling. "And what about Inspector Chin?" she asked. Mark waved dismissively. "Old friend. He knows how this works. A few free tickets, a nice dinner. It's not bribery. It's keeping the wheels turning. It's corruption. It's pragmatism," he sneered. "You think some girl in a hoodie can walk in and tear down a system we've built over years?" He didn't recognize her. "Not yet. But he would." Kira stood slowly, the final weight of everything Mark had confessed pressing heavily on her. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of betrayal. "You're right about one thing," she said, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Nobody's going to believe some random girl." She reached up and pulled back her hoodie. Mark's eyes widened. "But they might believe the CEO of Ellis Entertainment." The words dropped like a thunderclap. His smug expression cracked, replaced first by confusion, then horror. His mouth opened, but no sound came. The realization of who stood before him drained the blood from his face. "Kira," he whispered. "I know my place," she said evenly, echoing his earlier threat toward Bella. "And so do you. You're done." Mark's face shifted rapidly. Shock, panic, anger, desperation. "Your weight. You don't understand," he sputtered. "The pressure I'm under, the targets, the demands, nobody can hit those numbers without creative solutions." Kira's voice turned to ice. "Is that what you call selling moldy food to families? Creative solutions?" "No one got seriously hurt," he argued, now backing toward the kitchen counter like it could shield him. "And the profits helped fund all your fancy expansions. You think those new theaters pay for themselves?" Kira pulled out her phone. "We're done talking, Mark. I'm calling an emergency audit team to Sunset Plaza. Then I'm calling legal. Then the board." "You can't fire me," he shouted, desperation dripping from his words. "I'm family. Grandpa always said, family sticks together." "Grandpa never sold rotten food to children," Kira replied, already dialing, "and he never threatened honest employees for doing the right thing." By 10 o'clock a.m., she was back at Sunset Plaza, not as a customer, but as the CEO. This time, she wasn't alone. A team of corporate auditors, food safety inspectors, and security personnel followed her through the front doors. It was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. The lobby buzzed with tension. Employees exchanged nervous glances. Susan Torres, the day manager, looked bewildered as strangers in suits tore through her concession stand. When they uncovered the refrigerator hidden behind the filing cabinet, Susan's face went pale. "I didn't know," she whispered to Kira, who had since revealed her true identity. "I swear I thought the food I threw out stayed gone." "I know," Kira said softly. "That's why you're keeping your job." Reed, Jeremy, and Tanya weren't so lucky. As security escorted them out in handcuffs, the confidence had drained from Reed's eyes, replaced with rage and disbelief. "This is insane," he shouted. "We were just minimizing waste. My uncle, he'll fix this." "Your uncle's already been fired," Kira called back, voice steady, "and he's next in line for criminal charges." But it wasn't the arrests that mattered most. It was what came after. Kira gathered the remaining staff, 15 employees, from teenage concession workers to janitors. They stood quietly in the lobby, watching their CEO not from a pedestal, but eye to eye. "First," Kira began, "let me apologize. What happened here wasn't just unethical. It was a failure of corporate oversight. I take full responsibility for not catching it sooner." An older woman raised her hand. Patricia, who'd worked morning concessions for years. "Are we all losing our jobs?" "No," Kira said firmly. "Everyone uninvolved in the corruption is staying. In fact, we're hiring more staff and expanding hours. From now on, we do things right." She paused, then looked to the back of the group. "Bella Rodriguez, would you come up here?" Bella stepped forward cautiously, expecting reprimand. Her eyes were wide, her posture tense. "You tried to do the right thing," Kira said. "You reported violations, and instead of being listened to, you were threatened. That stops now." Kira smiled gently. "Effective immediately, you're being promoted to assistant manager. You'll work alongside Susan to implement new safety protocols and help retrain the entire staff." Bella's eyes welled. I don't know what to say." "Say yes." "Yes," Bella breathed. "Absolutely." Kira turned back to the others. "We're implementing a new system. Clean, real, zero tolerance for expired food, mandatory safety training, a direct hotline to corporate that bypasses regional managers entirely." She handed Susan a business card. "My personal number. Anyone threatens you for doing the right thing, you call me. No filters." Relief spread across the group like sunlight through fog. Later, as workers resumed their tasks with fresh energy, Kira stayed behind. She watched Susan and Bella tossing out questionable items, organizing inventory, labeling every shelf. For the first time in months, it felt like a real team again. But as she made her way to the exit, she was stopped by Patricia, her eyes misty. "Thank you," Patricia said. Most bosses would have sent someone else, but you showed up. You saw it yourself. You fixed it. Kira blinked away tears. That's what a family business is supposed to do, she said. Take care of its people. You'd make your grandfather proud, Patricia added. He always said Ellis Entertainment was about more than just movies. It was about trust. That night, Kira sat in her corner office on the 42nd floor of Willis Tower, looking out at the glowing Chicago skyline, but her mind was far from skyscrapers and stock reports. On her desk were the latest CleanReel rollout metrics, health scores perfect, customer satisfaction up 40%, and profits higher than ever. Turns out when customers trust you, they spend more. Knock at her door. Bella Rodriguez here for her quarterly review. Send her in, Kira said, smiling. Bella entered in a blazer, confident and polished, light years from the uncertain teen Kira had first met. How's Sunset Plaza? Kira asked. Thriving, Bella grinned. No complaints. The team's all in. Kira nodded. I'm rolling CleanReel out to every location, and I need someone to oversee it. Train managers, enforce ethics, serve as our integrity ambassador. You mean a corporate position? Bella gasped. Regional training director, full-time? Bella blinked. That's huge. And you've earned it, Kira said. Are you ready? Yes, Bella said without hesitation. Absolutely. After she left, Kira reviewed one final report, employee satisfaction. For the first time, it had surpassed 90%. The hotline was active. Reports were addressed, not ignored. The company was healing. Reed, Jeremy, and Tanya were in jail. Chin was under investigation. Mark, last Kira heard, he was selling used cars in Florida. Justice. Later, her lawyer called. Settlements finalized. Full refunds, 1 year passes, personal apology letters, all done. Lawsuit dismissed. The public's grateful for the transparency. Good, Kira said. And the Whistleblower Fund? Fully operational, the lawyer confirmed. Other companies are already copying your model. Kira hung up and looked out the window. Somewhere down there, families were choosing where to go tonight. Some would choose Ellis. And now they could trust that choice. Her phone buzzed. Susan, new record tonight, 200 large popcorns, 0 expired. Kira smiled. That's what I like to hear. A second message popped up. Bella. Thank you again. I won't let you down. Kira replied. You already haven't. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, casting golden shadows across her office, Kira whispered a promise to herself and the legacy she now truly understood. From now on, we keep it clean, even if it costs us. But it hadn't cost her. It had saved her. Because doing the right thing didn't just build a better business, it built something that would last for generations. And that was worth more than any profit ever could be.